The Velrathi Dominion had ruled the Orion arm of the galaxy for 12,000 years. No species had ever defeated them in battle. No world had ever resisted their conquest for more than a few weeks. Their ships were massive things of living metal and bone, grown rather than built. Their soldiers stood 9 feet tall, with natural armor harder than steel. They had crushed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. They had turned proud species into slaves. They were the nightmare that parents across 1,000 worlds used to frighten their children into obedience. "Hi, Commander." Zorith sat upon his throne aboard the flagship Devourer, reading reports from his scout vessels. His 4 eyes scanned the data without much interest. Another primitive world had been discovered. Another easy conquest awaited. "The creatures call their world Earth," his second officer reported. "They have basic space travel limited to their own solar system. Their weapons are chemical and nuclear-based, primitive. They pose no threat." Zorith made a sound that might have been a laugh. His mandibles clicked together in amusement. "Send a subjugation fleet. 40 ships should be more than enough. Give them the standard ultimatum. Surrender or die." On Earth, it was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Captain Nathan Cole was commanding the patrol vessel Horizon near Jupiter when his sensors detected something that should not have been possible. 40 massive signatures appeared out of nowhere, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Each ship was the size of a small moon. "Get me Admiral Patricia Webb at Central Command," Cole ordered. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "Tell her we have contact. Tell her it's not friendly." The Velrathi did not bother with pleasant introductions. Their first transmission was broadcast across every frequency, translated into every human language by technology humans could not begin to understand. "Creatures of Earth, you have been discovered by the Velrathi Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to surrender your governments, your military forces, and your population to our authority. If you comply, you will be allowed to serve. If you resist, you will be destroyed. There will be no negotiation. There will be no second warning." The message ended. Across the world, 7 billion humans looked up at the sky and felt fear. In the emergency bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, the leaders of Earth gathered. Presidents and prime ministers, generals and admirals, scientists and diplomats. They argued for hours about what to do. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to pray. Admiral Patricia Webb listened to all of them. She was 62 years old. She had served in 3 wars and buried 2 husbands. She had seen humanity at its worst and at its best. When the arguing finally stopped, she stood up and walked to the main display screen. "Let me tell you something about our species," she said quietly. "We have been fighting since the first human picked up the first rock and threw it at another human. We fought the ice ages. We fought diseases that killed half our population. We fought each other in wars that burned cities to ash and turned fields into graves. And we are still here." She turned to face the assembled leaders. "These aliens think we are primitive. They think we are weak. They think we will kneel because they are bigger and stronger and more advanced. They are wrong." The President of the United States leaned forward. "Admiral, their ships are the size of mountains. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. What exactly are you suggesting?" Webb smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "I am suggesting, sir, that we show them what happens when you threaten humanity." The deadline passed at midnight. Greenwich Mean Time. The Velrathi fleet began its approach toward Earth, expecting to find a world ready to submit. Instead, they found something else entirely. The first nuclear warhead detonated against the shields of the lead Velrathi vessel. It did not destroy the ship. It did not even damage it seriously. But it sent a message that echoed across the stars. Humanity had chosen war. "Hi, Commander." Zorith stared at his display screens in confusion. In his entire career, spanning 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever responded to the ultimatum with an attack. Primitive worlds begged for mercy. Advanced worlds attempted to negotiate. But no one attacked the Velrathi. "They are insane," his tactical officer observed. "Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. They must know this." Launch ground forces, Zorth commanded. Destroy their military installations. Capture their leaders. We will teach these creatures the price of defiance. The first Velrathi dropships entered Earth's atmosphere over the major cities. Chicago, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo. Massive vessels carrying thousands of soldiers each, confident in their superiority. Sergeant Danny Ortiz was stationed at a forward operating base outside Chicago when the sky turned dark with alien ships. He was 34 years old, born and raised in Texas, and he had never believed in aliens. Now he watched them descend from the clouds like demons from some old nightmare. All units, this is command. A voice crackled over his radio. Engage the enemy. Make them pay for every inch of ground. Ortiz checked his rifle and looked at his squad. They were scared. He was scared too. But fear was something humans had learned to live with a long time ago. "You heard the lady," he said. "Let us give these ugly bastards a proper welcome." The Velrathi soldiers landed expecting easy conquest. They found hell instead. Humans attacked them from rooftops and sewers, from basements and alleyways. They used guns and grenades, knives, and improvised explosives. They refused to form battle lines that could be destroyed. They refused to surrender when surrounded. They refused to stop fighting even when wounded. Private Maria Santos was 19 years old when she destroyed her first Velrathi soldier. She had been trapped in a collapsed building for 6 hours, her leg broken, her ammunition nearly exhausted. When the alien found her, it stood over her like a mountain of chitin and muscle. Confident in its victory, she detonated the grenade she had been holding against her chest. The blast killed the Velrathi instantly. By some miracle, she survived. "You want Earth?" she whispered as medics pulled her from the rubble. "Come and take it." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Humans died by the thousands. But for every human that fell, they took Velrathi with them. And slowly, impossibly, the aliens began to realize that this conquest would not be like the others. High Commander Zorth received the casualty reports with growing disbelief. 30% losses among ground forces in the first week alone. More soldiers killed in 7 days than in the last century of conquest combined. What are these creatures? He demanded. His science officer studied the data with all 4 of his eyes. They appear to be a species that has evolved for conflict, Commander. Their entire history is warfare. They are not more advanced than us. They are simply more willing to die. Zorth made his decision. Initiate orbital bombardment. If they will not submit, they will burn. Admiral Webb watched the first kinetic strikes hit the Asian continent from her bunker. Millions died in seconds. Cities vanished in fire and dust. She closed her eyes for a moment, mourning. Then she opened them and gave the order that would change galactic history. All remaining naval assets, execute Operation Prometheus. We are taking the fight to them. We are going to make them regret ever finding our little blue world. The galaxy had seen many conquests. The Velrathi Dominion had swallowed worlds the way a whale swallows small fish. Quick, efficient, without mercy. The pattern was always the same. A fleet would arrive. An ultimatum would be given. Resistance would crumble. Another star system would fall under dominion. Control. But the reports coming from the small blue world called Earth were different. Representative. Crix of the Mulveri sat in his embassy on the neutral station of Nexus Prime, watching the footage that had somehow escaped Velrathi's censorship. His species resembled large amphibians with smooth blue skin and wide eyes that blinked sideways. For 3,000 years, his people had served the Dominion. They had forgotten what resistance looked like. Now they were remembering. "This is impossible," Crix whispered, as he watched a group of human soldiers ambush a Velrathi patrol. The aliens were bigger, stronger, better equipped, but the humans fought like cornered animals, refusing to retreat, refusing to surrender. How are they doing this? His aide, a younger Mulveri named Prel, consulted the data streams. "Their technology is inferior to ours, Representative. Their ships are slower, their weapons weaker, but they adapt. Every weapon the Velrathi use against them they analyze and improve within days. They are learning faster than any species we have ever observed. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Grant had not slept in 4 days. Before the invasion, she had been working on experimental fusion technology at the Lunar Research Station, trying to develop a new power source for deep space travel. Now, she was trying to turn that same technology into a weapon. The energy output is unstable, her assistant warned. If we push it any further, the whole system could explode. Lisa looked at the reports coming in from Earth. Cities burning. Millions dead. The Velrathi fleet moving closer to finish what their ground forces had started. And we better make sure it explodes in the right direction, she said. The Velrathi cruiser domination was the first to enter low. Earth O. Our bit, preparing to begin the final bombardment that would break human resistance forever. Its captain was confident. His shields had absorbed every weapon the humans had thrown at him. Their missiles were like insects against his hull. He never saw the beam of concentrated stellar energy that cut his ship in half. The fusion lance, as Lisa would later call it, was a crude device. It was inefficient, unstable, and nearly impossible to aim. But it worked. For the first time in recorded history, a Velrathi warship was destroyed by a species they had considered primitive. Hi, Commander. Zorath watched the destruction of the domination from the bridge of his flagship. His mandibles stopped clicking. His 4 eyes narrowed. Around him, his officers fell silent. What was that? He demanded. Unknown weapon, Commander, his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. Energy signature suggests some form of directed fusion reaction. We have no record of this species possessing such technology. It did not possess it 3 weeks ago, Zorath said slowly. They built it. In the middle of a war, they invented a weapon that can destroy our ships. For the first time in 300 years, High Commander Zorath felt something cold settling in his stomach. He recognized it after a moment. It was fear. On the ground, the war continued. Major Danny Ortiz, promoted after the death of his commanding officer, led what remained of his battalion through the ruins of Chicago. The city that had once held 3 million people was now a graveyard of broken concrete and twisted metal. But humans still fought there. They would always fight there. Contact left, Private Santos called out. Her leg had healed badly, leaving her with a permanent limp. She refused to be evacuated. For hostiles, moving between the buildings, suppressing fire, Ortiz ordered. Rodriguez, get the launcher ready. Aim for the joints in their armor. The Velrathi soldiers were massive, terrifying creatures that towered over the humans like gods of war. But gods could bleed. Gods could die. And every Velrathi that fell in Chicago was one less monster threatening their world. Corporal. He had been a mechanic before the invasion, working on cars in his father's shop. Now he fired anti-tank missiles at alien warriors with hands that no longer trembled. For my sister, he said as he pulled the trigger. His sister had died in the first bombardment, along with everyone else in Los Angeles. For everyone. The missile struck the lead Velrathi in the knee joint, exactly where the armor was weakest. The alien went down, screaming in a language no human could understand. Its companions tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. Humans emerged from the rubble on all sides, firing from windows and rooftops. From behind burned-out cars and collapsed walls, when the fighting stopped, for Velrathi bodies lay in the street, 3 humans had died to kill them. It was a ratio that would have horrified any other species. For humanity, it was victory. News of Earth's resistance spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On Nexus Prime, species that had been conquered generations ago gathered in secret to watch the footage. The Mulvari, the Kordani, the Silari, the Veth, all of them slaves to the Dominion. All of them taught from birth that resistance was impossible. Now they watched humans prove that lesson wrong. They are dying in millions, Ambassador Threx of the Kordani observed. His species resembled large lizards, with scales that changed color based on emotion. Right now, those scales were shifting rapidly between fear and hope. How can they continue? Representative Crix considered the question carefully. Perhaps that is the wrong question, Ambassador. Perhaps we should be asking ourselves why we stopped. On Earth, Admiral Webb received word that the fusion lance had successfully destroyed a second Velrathi vessel. She allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction before turning to her next problem. "Now we cannot win a war of attrition," she told her staff. "They have hundreds of ships. We have weapons that barely work. We need to do something they will not expect." "What do you suggest, Admiral?" her tactical officer asked. Webb pulled up a holographic display of the Velrathi fleet. 40 ships, arranged in perfect formation, slowly tightening their noose around Earth. "We attack," she said. "We take every ship we have, every weapon we can carry, and we hit them where they least expect it." "That is suicide," someone protested. Maybe Webb agreed. "But suicide is what they expect from us now. What they do not expect is for us to hurt them. Really hurt them. And if we can do that, if we can bloody their nose badly enough, maybe they will think twice about finishing what they started." She looked around the room at the tired, frightened faces of her staff. These were the people who would decide humanity's fate. These were the people who would either save their species or die trying. "Prepare Operation Prometheus," she ordered. "We launch in 48 hours." In the ruins of Chicago, Major Ortiz looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the smoke and the clouds, alien warships were preparing to end his world. He thought about his parents in Texas, his brother in New York, all the people he would never see again. "Think we've got a chance?" Santos asked, settling down beside him. Ortiz was quiet for a long moment. "I think we have got something better than a chance," he said finally. "We have got nothing left to lose, and that makes us the most dangerous thing in the universe." The asteroid had no name, just a designation in some forgotten database. It drifted in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, unremarkable and ignored. But inside that asteroid, hidden from Velrathi sensors, humanity had been building something, Commander. Kyle Bennett stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and felt pride swelling in his chest. The ship around him was ugly, crude, and held together with welding and prayers. It was also the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. "All systems green," his first officer reported. Lieutenant Amy Chen was barely 25 years old, one of the youngest officers in the fleet. She had lost her entire family in the Beijing bombardment. She had not cried once. Fusion lance charged and ready. "Fleet is assembled and awaiting orders." Bennett looked at the tactical display. Surrounding the Defiance were 47 other vessels. Converted cargo haulers, mining ships, passenger liners, with weapons bolted to their hulls. It was not a proper navy. It was a collection of desperate improvisations crewed by civilians who had learned to fight. It was all humanity had left. "Okay. Open a channel to the fleet," Bennett ordered. When his face appeared on screens across the makeshift armada, he saw fear in the eyes looking back at him. He saw exhaustion. He saw grief. But he also saw something else. Something that had kept humanity alive through ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed them. He saw defiance. "In a few hours, we are going to attack the Velrathi fleet," Bennett said. "I will not lie to you. Many of us will die. Most of us probably, but every minute we keep them busy up here is a minute our people on the ground have to fight back. Every ship we destroy is a ship that will never bomb another city." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They think we are primitives. They think we are animals to be conquered and enslaved. Today, we prove them wrong. Today we show them what humanity is really made of. And if we die fighting. We die free." The fleet launched from the asteroid belt like a swarm of angry hornets. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and outclassed in every possible way. None of them expected to survive. High Commander Zorith detected the human fleet when it was still 2 hours away. He studied the readings with something approaching disbelief. "They are attacking us," he said. "With that?" His tactical officer nodded nervously. 48 vessels, Commander. Mostly converted civilian craft. Minimal shielding. Light armaments except for the lead ship, which appears to carry the weapon that destroyed our cruisers. Zorith made a sound that was almost like laughter. They are desperate. They are throwing everything they have at us in one final charge. It is almost admirable. Shall we intercept them, Commander? No. Zorith settled back in his command throne. Let them come. Let them break themselves against our shields. Then we will finish destroying their world and move on to more worthy conquests. The Battle of Earth began at 0347 hours. Greenwich Mean Time. The human fleet emerged from behind the moon in a ragged formation, accelerating toward the Velrothi Armada at maximum thrust. The first Velrothi volleys destroyed 7 human ships in seconds. Fireballs bloomed in the darkness of space as cargo haulers and mining vessels disintegrated under weapons designed to crack planets. But the humans did not stop. They did not retreat. They kept coming. Fire the lance, Bennett ordered. The fusion beam lanced across space like the finger of an angry god. It struck the Velrothi flagship directly on its bow, burning through shields and armor and everything else in its path. The ancient vessel that had conquered 100 worlds shuddered and began to die. Hi, Commander. Zorith felt his ship breaking apart around him. Alarms screamed in languages he did not understand. His crew scrambled in panic, trying to contain damage that could not be contained. How? He demanded of no one in particular. How is this possible? He never received an answer. The secondary explosion from the flagship's power core killed him instantly, along with 3,000 of his crew. The death of the flagship sent shockwaves through the Velrothi fleet. For the first time in living memory, a Velrothi commander had fallen in battle. The perfect formation began to crack as individual captains struggled to respond to a situation. They had never trained for Commander Bennett pressed the advantage with everything he had. All ships, concentrate fire on the nearest target, he ordered. Keep them off balance. Do not give them time to regroup. The cargo ship Resolution rammed a Velrothi destroyer at full speed, detonating its reactor core in the process. Both vessels vanished in a flash of light that could be seen from Earth. The mining vessel, Steadfast, managed to lodge itself against a cruiser's engine section. Drilling into the alien hull with equipment designed to bore through solid rock, it was not elegant. It was not strategic. It was pure, desperate fury unleashed against an enemy that had never faced anything like it. On Earth, people gathered in the ruins of their cities and watched the battle unfold in the night sky. They saw the flashes of explosions. They saw the dying light of ships on both sides. And for the first time since the invasion began, they allowed themselves to hope. Private Santos stood in the wreckage of Chicago and watched a Velrothi cruiser break apart in orbit. Debris rained down through the atmosphere, burning bright trails across the sky. "They are doing it," she whispered. "They are actually doing it." Beside her, Major Ortiz nodded grimly. "The question is whether it will be enough." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, humanity had lost 32 of its 48 ships. Commander Bennett was dead, his bridge destroyed by a direct hit in the final minutes of fighting. Lieutenant Chen assumed command of what remained. But the Velrothi had lost more. 18 of their warships were destroyed or crippled. Their flagship was gone. Their commander was dead. And for the first time in 12,000 years, the Velrothi fleet retreated from a battlefield. The surviving ships limped away from Earth's solar system, wounded and shocked. They left behind the wreckage of their fallen vessels and something else. Something more important, they left behind doubt. On Nexus Prime, Representative Crix watched the footage of the Velrothi retreat with tears streaming down his amphibian face. Around him, diplomats from a dozen conquered species sat in stunned silence. "They did it," Crix said. "The humans actually drove them off." Ambassador Threx's scales had turned a shade of orange that his species associated with wonder. "This changes everything. If the Velrothi can be defeated by primitives, then perhaps they can be defeated by us." "We would need help," another voice said. It belonged to a small, furred creature named Vess, representing the Solari people. "We would need someone to teach us how to fight." Crix turned to look at the distant star that was Earth's sun. Somewhere around that star, 7 billion humans were celebrating a victory that should have been impossible. I think he said slowly, that I know exactly who to ask. On Earth. Admiral Webb permitted herself a single glass of whiskey as the last Velrathi ships vanished from sensor range. The cost had been terrible. Millions dead. Cities destroyed. A fleet reduced to 16 damaged vessels. But they were still here. They were still free. What now, Admiral? Her aide asked. Webb set down her glass and turned to face the reconstruction reports. There was so much work to do. So many dead to mourn. So many wounds to heal. Now, she said, we get ready for round 2. Because they will be back. And next time, we need to be ready to take the fight to them. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, a Mulvari diplomatic vessel entered the solar system under a flag of truce. It was a small ship, barely larger than a private yacht, but it carried something more valuable than any weapon. It carried hope. Representative Crix stood at the viewport as Earth came into view. The planet was scarred now, brown patches visible where cities had once stood, but it was still beautiful. Still alive? Still defiant? I never thought I would see this day, he told his aide Prel. A world that fought the Dominion and won. They have not won yet, Prel reminded him gently. The Dominion will return with a larger force. Yes. Crix straightened his ceremonial robes. That is exactly why we are here. Admiral Patricia Webb met the Mulvari delegation aboard the newly constructed orbital station known as Hope's Reach. The station was still being built. Welders and construction drones visible through the observation windows, but the section containing the diplomatic reception hall was complete. It had been given priority for exactly this reason, Representative Crix, Webb said, extending her hand in the human greeting she had been told the Mulvari had researched. Welcome to Earth, or what is left of it. Crix took her hand carefully. His fingers were webbed and cooled at the touch. Admiral Webb, your reputation precedes you. Among my people, you are already becoming a legend. Legends do not rebuild cities or bury the dead. Webb's voice was tired, but steady. What can we do for the Mulvari Collective? Crix glanced at his aide, then back at the human admiral. Actually, Admiral, we came to discuss what we can do for you. Or more precisely, what we can do together. Over the next 3 hours, Crix explained the situation in the wider galaxy. The Velrathi Dominion controlled over 300 star systems. Dozens of species lived under their rule, some for thousands of years. Most had forgotten what freedom felt like. Most had accepted that resistance was impossible, but Earth had changed that. Word of your victory has spread to every corner of Dominion space, Crix said. Species that have not raised a hand in defiance for generations are now whispering about rebellion. The Dominion is trying to suppress the news, but they cannot stop it entirely. Webb leaned forward in her chair. And you want us to help fan those flames. I want you to teach us how to fight. Crix met her eyes directly. My people were warriors once, before the Dominion came. That was 3,000 years ago. We have forgotten everything. But you humans, you have been fighting your entire existence. War is in your blood in a way it is not in ours. You are asking us to lead a galactic rebellion against an empire that has existed for 12,000 years. Yes. Webb was silent for a long moment. Through the observation window, she could see Earth turning slowly below them. The scars were healing, but they would never fully disappear. Millions of her people had died in the invasion. Millions more would die if the Dominion returned. But if they did nothing, if they simply waited for the hammer to fall again, those deaths would mean nothing. We will need more than just the Mulvari, she said finally. Crix allowed himself a small smile. I have already begun reaching out to other species. The Cordani are interested. So are the Silari and the Veth. There are others who are watching, waiting to see if this is real. Then let us make it real. The Human Coalition, as it came to be called, was born in that moment. Within 3 months, human military advisors were traveling to a dozen different worlds, teaching tactics that humanity had perfected over millennia of internal conflict. Colonel Chris Palmer found himself on the frozen world of Malvera, standing before a group of amphibious beings who had never held a weapon in anger. They looked at him with wide, uncertain eyes, and he remembered being a young recruit himself, scared and unsure. "The first thing you need to understand," he told them through his translator, "is that fighting is not about being the biggest or the strongest. It is about being the most stubborn. It is about refusing to give up even when everything tells you that you should." One of the Mulveri recruits raised a webbed hand. "But the Valrathi are so much more powerful than us. How can stubbornness overcome their weapons and ships?" Palmer smiled. "Let me tell you a story about a place called Chicago." He told them about the siege, about the outnumbered defenders who held out for weeks against overwhelming odds. He told them about the improvised weapons and the guerrilla tactics, and the absolute refusal to surrender. He told them about Private Santos, who had blown herself up to kill a single enemy soldier and somehow survived by the end of the story. Something had changed in the eyes of his students. The fear was still there, but it was joined by something else. Something harder. Similar scenes played out across Coalition space. On the desert world of Corda, Major Danny Ortiz taught lizard-like warriors how to use terrain to their advantage. On the jungle moon of Solara, Captain Amy Chen trained small, nimble creatures in the art of infiltration and sabotage. The humans were not always patient teachers. They were blunt, demanding, and sometimes crude. They cursed in languages their students did not understand and pushed them harder than any Dominion trainer ever had. But they also treated their students as equals, as fellow warriors in a common cause. For species that had known nothing but servitude, that respect meant more than any tactical lesson. Word of the Coalition reached the Valrathi eventually. Emperor Vexith, ruler of the Dominion for 600 years, summoned his war council to the ancient throne world of Velrath Prime. "These humans have infected the collective with their madness," he declared from his seat of living bone. His voice echoed through the vast chamber, cold and furious. "They are teaching our slaves to rebel. They are undermining everything we have built. They're also proving harder to destroy than anticipated." One of his generals observed carefully. "The reports from the initial conquest were disturbing. Our losses were unprecedented, because we underestimated them." The Emperor's four eyes glowed with ancient malice. "That was a mistake I do not intend to repeat. Prepare the Grand Fleet. Every ship, every soldier. We will descend upon this coalition with such force that not even the memory of resistance will survive, Your Majesty. The Grand Fleet has not been assembled since the founding wars. To mobilize such a force would take months."
"Oh, then.
"We will take months. But when we are done, when every rebel world has been burned to ash and every human has been hunted to extinction, the galaxy will never again dare to challenge our rule." Human intelligence networks detected the mobilization almost immediately. Dr. Lisa Grant, now head of the Coalition's Weapons Research Division, presented the data to the assembled leadership. 2,000 warships, she reported. 10 million soldiers. It is the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Admiral Webb studied the projections grimly. "How long do we have?" 18 months. Maybe less if they push their construction schedule. The room fell silent. 18 months to prepare for an armada that could crack planets. 18 months to turn a handful of former slaves into an army that could stand against the greatest military power the galaxy had ever known. Representative Crix broke the silence. "Is it enough time?" Webb looked around the room at the faces of her allies. Humans and Mulvari, Cordani and Solari. Species that had been strangers a year ago, now united against a common enemy. "It will have to be," she said. "Because we are not going to get a second chance." The debris field of a shattered moon drifted at the edge of Coalition space. Once this had been a Velrathi mining outpost. Now it was a graveyard of broken rock and forgotten machinery. It was also the place where humanity would make its final stand. Admiral Kyle Bennett, nephew of the hero who had died at the Battle of Earth, stood on the bridge of the flagship Freedom's Call and watched the Coalition fleet take up position. 300 ships from 12 different species arranged themselves among the asteroids. Using the debris as cover and concealment, it was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was all they had. Admiral long-range sensors are detecting the Dominion fleet, his tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Juan Rodriguez had come a long way from the ruins of Chicago. The young man who had once fired missiles at alien soldiers now commanded the weapon systems of the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. 2,000 vessels. They will be in weapons range in 4 hours. Bennett nodded slowly. Open a channel to the fleet. His face appeared on screens across the Coalition armada. Human captains and Mulvari commanders, Cordani warriors, and Siluri infiltrators. All of them watching. All of them waiting.
Ow.
The Valrethi think they know what they are facing. They think they know humanity. They think they know our allies. But they do not understand what happens when free peoples fight for their survival. He paused, looking at the distant stars. We are not here just for Earth. We are not here just for our allies. We are here because someone has to show the galaxy that tyrants can fall, that empires can crumble, that no matter how powerful the oppressor, there will always be those who refuse to kneel. On every ship, in every language, the message resonated. Species that had cowered for millennia straightened their spines. Beings that had forgotten how to hope allowed themselves to believe. Today we fight. Today we bleed. And today we show the Valrathi Dominion that their reign is over. The Dominion fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 2,000 ships, each one a fortress of living metal, spreading across the darkness like a swarm of metallic locusts. At their center, Emperor Vexith's throne ship dwarfed everything around it. A vessel so massive, it had its own gravitational field. Primitive creatures, the Emperor sneered as he surveyed the Coalition fleet on his display screens. You think numbers alone can stand against the might of the Dominion? We have conquered species far more advanced than you. We have crushed empires that lasted for eons. You are nothing, gave the order to attack. The first wave of Valrathi missiles streaked toward the Coalition lines. Hundreds of weapons, each one capable of destroying a small moon, racing through the debris field toward their targets. The Coalition ships scattered, using the broken rocks as shields, turning fire with everything they had. The Battle of the Reach had begun. Major Danny Ortiz was no longer on a warship. He led a mixed strike team of humans, Mulvari, Cordani, aboard a small assault craft, threading through the chaos of battle toward the Emperor's throne ship. Their mission was simple and almost certainly suicidal. Board the enemy flagship. Kill the Emperor. End the war. Approaching the target, the pilot reported. Heavy fire. Shields at 60%. Get us in close, Ortiz ordered. We only need one chance. The assault craft shuddered as weapons fire scorched its hull. Through the viewport, Ortiz could see the throne ship growing larger, surface crawling with defense turrets that spat death in every direction. Beside him, Captain Amy Chin checked her rifle for the 10th time. You know this is crazy, right? She said. Ortiz smiled grimly. Everything we have done for the past 2 years has been crazy. This is just the grand finale. They hit the throne ship's hull at full speed, the assault craft's boarding claws digging into the bioorganic metal. The airlock blasted open, and Ortiz led his team into the belly of the beast. In space, the battle raged on. The Coalition was taking terrible losses. For every Valrathi ship they destroyed, they lost 3 of their own. But something was wrong with the Dominion fleet. Ships were hesitating, breaking formation, behaving erratically. Dr. Lisa Grant watched from the Freedom's Call as her latest invention did its work. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a virus, designed to attack the bioorganic components of Valrathi technology. Every Dominion ship was partly alive, and that meant every Dominion ship could get sick. Infection rate at 47%, she reported. Their systems are failing across the fleet. Admiral Bennett pressed the advantage. All ships concentrate fire on the infected vessels. Do not give them time to adapt. The Coalition fleet surged forward, hammering the weakened Dominion ships with everything they had. Mulvari cruisers fought alongside human destroyers. Cordani frigates covered Solari bombers as they made their attack runs. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Velrathi were losing. Aboard the throne ship, Ortiz and his team fought their way toward the bridge. The corridors were nightmares of organic machinery and Velrathi soldiers, but the strike team had trained for this. They moved like ghosts, killing quickly and quietly, leaving a trail of alien bodies in their wake. Private Maria Santos was with them. Her limp had never fully healed, but she refused to be left behind. When a Velrathi guard appeared around a corner, she was the first to fire, dropping the massive creature before it could raise an alarm. "For Chicago," she whispered. It had become her prayer, her battle cry, her reason for living. They reached the bridge just as the last of the guards fell. The doors blasted open, revealing Emperor Vexith surrounded by his personal retinue. The ancient ruler of 300 worlds turned to face the ragged band of humans and aliens who had dared to invade his sanctum. "You think killing me will change anything?" he hissed. "The Dominion is eternal. Another will take my place. 1,000 more will rise to crush your pathetic rebellion." Ortiz stepped forward, his weapon raised. Around him, his team spread out, covering every angle. "You are wrong," he said quietly. "We are not going to kill you. We are going to do something much worse. We are going to let you live, and you are going to watch your empire crumble. You are going to watch every species you ever oppressed rise up and claim their freedom. You are going to die alone, forgotten, knowing that everything you built was destroyed by the primitives you thought you could enslave." The Emperor's eyes widened. For the first time in 600 years, he felt true fear. Outside, the Battle of the Reach reached its climax. With their flagship captured and their fleet crippled by the biovirus, the Velrathi began to retreat. Ship after ship broke off and fled, pursued by coalition vessels hungry for vengeance. When it was over, when the last Dominion ship had vanished into the darkness, the coalition fleet gathered among the debris of their enemies. They had lost half their forces. Thousands were dead. But they had won. The war did not end at the Battle of the Reach. It took another decade of fighting before the Dominion finally collapsed, fragmenting into a dozen smaller powers that would never again threaten the galaxy. But the turning point, the moment when everything changed, was when humanity and its allies proved that the mightiest empire could be brought down by those brave enough to fight. 10 years after first contact, Ambassador Patricia Webb addressed the newly formed Galactic Assembly. She was older now, her hair white, her face lined with the weight of everything she had seen, but her voice was still strong. "We were told that resistance was futile," she said, looking out at the gathered representatives. Mulvari and Cordani, Silarai and Veth, humans and 100 other species united by their shared struggle. "We were told that the Dominion was eternal, that some powers were too great to challenge. We proved them wrong." She paused, remembering all the friends she had lost, all the sacrifices that had been made.